I'm lost and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Hello. Hello.
This is My Life DIY, and
Hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Ash.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light.
And you're now listening
to Dark Wolf's Den.
to Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Are ghosts real?
We had 1,000 hours of continuous communication with the spirit world.
Does time travel actually exist?
The laws of physics seem to be compatible with time machines.
You know, sometimes I wonder about reincarnation. Don't you?
A 4-year-old boy in Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana.
What would happen if the world found out that aliens were real?
I didn't say disclosure would be easy, but what is the alternative?
To establish a space force as the 6th branch of the armed forces.
We have so many questions and yet so little time, so to have you here, the pleasure is all mine.
Coming to you from a secret mountain cave, hidden deep within the Idaho wilderness. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live across the multiverse from a secret cave, hidden high up in the beautifully snow-covered peaks of the Idaho mountains. That's right. We're ripping through the electromagnetic soup, tearing through the atmosphere, and tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Wednesday, June 16th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we're going to carry on our series of The State of Mystery. We're going to travel from the warm southern lands of Alabama all the way up to the cold, frozen tundra of Alaska, and what I would dare say could possibly be the most paranormal state in all of the Union. Don't believe me? Just stick around. We got so much to cover and so little time to get there, ladies and gentlemen. But first, today in history. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. On this day in 1978, the film Grease opens, starring John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, based, of course, on the 1971 musical of the same name. And that is today's Today in History. And of course, Grease being a local favorite amongst the Ripon Rabbit crew that I know, a lot of us love that movie, and can't believe it come out on this day in 1978. That's one play that I've really thought about doing for the Ripon Rabbit Hole players. Like the next play we put on the radio, I've really thought about it being Grease. What do you guys think? Would you like to hear Grease done on the radio? That would be too awesome, right? I think that'd be cool. And you know, Grease starts on the beach, but we're not talking about the beach tonight. We're talking about Alaska, right? And before we get into the main topic, we got, of course, one more segment to do.
Say what?
I know, Stewie. I was as surprised as you were, right? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, our quote of the day today comes to us from stand-up comedian Steve Wright. He says the Bermuda Triangle got tired of warm weather, so it moved to Alaska. Now Santa Claus is missing. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, once again, stand-up comedian Steve Wright.
Say what?
And for those who don't know what the Alaskan Triangle is, that will make a whole lot more sense, that quote will, by the end of the show, because we will be covering the Alaskan Triangle here shortly. Spoiler alert, right? And before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, I know that just referenced Alaska, the Triangle, and Santa Claus, and a lot of us do remember Santa Claus living at the North Pole. And of course, on our globes and our maps now, the North Pole never existed, but a lot of us remember an ice cap at the top where Santa Claus used to live, and that is a very well-known Mandela effect, of course, but it's only one of many, many amazing paranormal things in this world, right? Especially when it comes to Alaska. Ladies and gentlemen, I could not have been more amazed by the amount of paranormal that I found when it comes to Alaska. They've got a number of cryptid creatures, creatures that I definitely would not like to run into, and actually more open wilderness than any other state. This is completely open, completely untouched wilderness because it is so dangerous to humans and is so cold most of the time, right? We are talking about Alaska. So, of course, we're going to start out as we do every week with our cryptids of Alaska. And let me tell you guys, you are not going to believe this. I was absolutely stunned when I heard some of the creatures and beasts that are in Alaska. Normally, I would run head on into the paranormal, as you guys know, but when it comes to the stories you're about to hear, even I would second guess myself running that quickly into the Alaskan wilderness.
Alaska is a very enormous state. With 663,000 square miles, it's about the size of Germany, Poland, and France combined. Alaska's population is around 737,000 people.
And dwindling daily, as 1 in 4 Alaskans are said to go missing every year.
Plenty of these people have claimed to seen some of the strangest monsters ever heard of. One of these creatures that people have claimed to see are the legendary woolly mammoths from a bygone era.
I told you guys it was unbelievable, right? Could you imagine a woolly mammoth, right? Spotted in Alaska. This is an amazing case file.
There have been many reports from all the way back to 1896, all the way up to modern day.
So this isn't exactly an isolated event. This has been going on for a couple hundred years now.
There was also an account published in Maine about a story of a journalist who went out to Alaska to purchase some ivory of the legendary woolly mammoth for scientific reasons. He went out to a tribe who have claimed to have had tusks from the legendary creature. Upon arriving, the journalist thought that they would have found fossils of the creature.
Which, of course, according to modern knowledge, would make sense, right? It would just be fossils. However,
upon examining the tusks, he noticed there was still blood and fur on the creature's tusks.
So, I can explain the fur away still being there. I've seen a couple different times, especially in the colder areas where that would be preserved. I have no issue with that. My issue is with the fresh blood on the tusk. That's a little harder to explain. Now, one could argue that it froze and was thawed out, but even then, I find an issue with that. It shouldn't look fresh, right?
When he asked the tribe how they got it and where the blood came from, the tribe said that they killed 2 of them just over 3 weeks ago.
Now, this is modern times, and the tribe claimed that they killed 2 of these woolly mammoths within 3 weeks of the scientist's arrival to pick up the tusk. That's absolutely insane.
And they said that there is a large group, or a herd, of woolly mammoths living above a river just north of their town.
So again, this isn't an isolated creature. There's a whole herd of them apparently traveling the Alaskan wilderness.
The tribe claimed that they were out on a routine hunt when these large creatures started to come towards them. The ground started to shake, and they heard shrill-like trumpets throughout the air. The creatures charged them, and they happened to kill 2 of them before the rest of the herd scrambled off.
I gotta say, I'm pretty amazed that these tribesmen would even fight these woolly mammoths, let alone win, right? So that's pretty awesome. So what does officialdom have to say about the Alaskan woolly mammoth? Surely they're gonna put a lid on something like this, right?
After this, the reporter talked to the governor of Alaska. He said that if woolly mammoths were still alive in Alaska, Alaska would be the place to do it. Plenty of land and great weather for it.
So you really got to kind of stand up and take a little bit of notice when even officialdom's like, yeah, if it's possible anywhere, it'd be here. So, ladies and gentlemen, there have been reports for a couple hundred years now of woolly mammoths in Alaska. I wonder if you can get hunting permits for those. I wonder if Alaska sells woolly mammoth hunting permits. I doubt it. Probably just open season on a woolly mammoth, right? As many as you can bag, right? Although I would consider them an endangered species, maybe they're not huntable at all. I don't know. For our next monster, though, out of Alaska, you're going to need a fishing license, not a hunting license.
The Illimana Lake Monster. In a sparsely populated area of southwest Alaska, with only 109 residents, lies the 1,012 square mile Illimana Lake. This lake is home to plenty of fish such as salmon, trout, and northern pike. The monster known as Gunekadek by the Tlingit people were reviewed as a god. The natives claimed this creature had the body of an orca and the head of a wolf.
You know, I've seen many a wolf in my time, but I've never seen a whale wolf. That's a little different. It's kind of disturbing, actually.
And was known to eat fishing boats. Early Russian explorers reportedly saw the creature, and sightings of the creature have continued all the way to this day.
So this is yet another creature that has been sighted well into modern times.
Modern reports come from explorers and biologists who have seen 30-foot monsters, sometimes described as aluminum covered, and other times black with white stripes, coming out of the water.
And this next case file is one of the wildest modern reports of a cryptid I've heard, especially in Alaska.
One report is from an airplane snagging the beast with a tuna hook. The beast towed the plane around the lake before those aboard decided to release the hook.
This creature was big enough to tow an airplane around the lake because it was hooked with a tuna hook. That's a pretty big creature. I don't know of any human that can grab hold of a chain connected to an airplane and can pull the airplane down. That's got to be one gigantic creature.
There were also multiple sightings in June 2017. On June 19th, many people from the local town said they saw something emerge from the lake. They said there was more than one. There was at least 3 of them. The first one was double in size and over 32 feet long. They said they were black or very dark gray, and they were at a total loss of words of what they were seeing. Experts have claimed that the Illimana Lake Monster is everything from a white sturgeon to a sleeper shark to a beluga whale. But all of those creatures reach a length of about 20 feet. And eyewitnesses say that the creatures that they've seen are much bigger than that.
I've never seen any of these creatures that scientists mentioned that had the head of a wolf with the body of an orca. So I don't care what creature they mention, unless they can find one that has a wolf's head on it, they have nowhere near an explanation in my book. But of course, we can't forget our buddy, the most famous of all the cryptids, also has a large territory in Alaska.
It would be, of course, a Bigfoot. This one is known as the Port Chatham Monster, or locally as the Tinek, and is found on the Kenai Peninsula. Stories of this creature have been around since the very start of the port town, which was developed in 1900. At this time, a cannery was built, and then the town was constructed around it. Only 5 years later, Port Chatham, also known as Portlock, was abandoned due to everyone, including the Native Americans there, being afraid of something in the forest that was described as being tall, bipedal, hairy, and a mix between a man and a beast.
And of course, that does sound like the classic description of a Bigfoot.
People soon returned to the town and even established a post office in 1921. However, signs of the beast still being in the area were still evident, since people found many large trees torn out of the ground and placed upside down back into the holes. Then in 1931, a logger from the town named Andrew Camlock went into the forest but never returned. A search party was sent out, and they found Andrew's body lying on the ground with a massive wound on his head. It was assumed that a piece of heavy logging equipment was used by something to cause the damage.
The way I understand this case file, the piece of equipment that he was supposedly knocked over the head with was quite a large piece of equipment for just a human to be picking up.
Not long after this, a gold prospector headed into the forest to do some mining, and he never returned, nor was his body found. Later, a man named Tom Larson was gathering wood for his fishing traps when he noticed a large, hairy man-like creature standing on the beach. Tom ran back to get his gun, and when he returned, he found the creature was still there. Mr. Larson claimed that the being just stood there, staring the man in the eyes, and Tom was too afraid to pull the trigger.
And remember, this is the early 1900s, so this is still relatively modern times.
This kind of activity kept up for quite some time, and in the 1940s, there were even more reports of people venturing into the forest to hunt sheep and bear, but were never seen again. Things took a turn for the worse when residents started to find the dismembered limbs of victims that had washed off the mountains and into the lagoon. Allegedly, these limbs showed signs of being torn apart, rather than how a bear would normally handle its victims.
These definitely do not sound like friendly creatures, and that is really disturbing that the runoff from the melting glaciers on the mountains had that many human body pieces in them. Apparently the Bigfoot up there is not exactly a neighborly type creature by any means.
Finally, a group of hunters were out tracking a moose when they came across the prints of a creature with a human-looking foot, but the tracks were 18 inches long. The hunters continued to follow the moose tracks, but quickly realized that whatever was leaving the giant prints was apparently tracking the moose as well. Soon they came across an area where it was apparent that a struggle had taken place, and the moose tracks ended. However, the 18-inch long footprints continued up into the mountains. The hunters then decided it was probably best not to find out what left those tracks. Once again, the families in the town grew tired of being attacked by this creature and left the town and headed to the nearby Port Graham. Not all took this warning, since in 1968 a hunter was trying to hunt goats when he found himself in a life-and-death situation as a large, hairy man-like creature started to chase him through the forest. Then in 1973, 3 hunters took refuge from a storm near the town. They managed to return in one piece, but they claimed that every night they heard a large bipedal being walking outside their tents.
Now we're up to as late as the 1970s, and these case files are still coming in, and I can tell you that they still come in to this day from Alaska about the wild men in the mountains. And speaking of wild men, there's apparently another tribe of people that live in Alaska that have a, how do I even say this, have a strange property to them. Check this out.
For this last creature, it's certainly one of the most strange. The Kushtaka, or land otter people. The land otter people of southern Alaska have terrorized a small native tribe for centuries.
The land otter people. And yes, this is exactly as it sounds.
A story was put out about these creatures in the Alpines magazine, claiming that the Kushta are a race of people who can shapeshift into otters. It also referred to them as were-otters, very similar to a werewolf, but very less frightening.
Of all the creatures to turn into, I don't consider otters exactly the most dangerous on the list.
The story goes that the Kushka assume the form of an otter and lure humans into their trap, and when they do, they turn them into Kushka as well.
Now, okay, I kinda don't mind the idea of being a shapeshifter to an otter and back to a human. Like, you could actually probably get away with hearing a couple of conversations you're not supposed to hear, right? Then again, there may be a price to pay for having this special ability.
Once a human becomes a Kushka, his position in the afterlife is forfeit, and his soul is trapped here on Earth forever, in the form of an otter.
Now, it seems to me that's a bit of a high price to pay for having the ability to shapeshift to an otter, never being able to have your soul leave the earthly realm after death, and being an otter, being changed to an otter at death, and having to live out eternity as such. That doesn't sound like as much fun after all, actually. What do you guys think? Would you do it? Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat room if you would take that deal. If you would give up your modern soul for the ability to shapeshift to an otter and be an otter for eternity. Or put a 2 in the chat room if, heck no, that sounds like something you would definitely not want to be a part of. Now, a werewolf, maybe I would consider that, but I'm not sure about a were-otter. What do you guys think?
The tribe of Tlingit claim that these creatures are real. The tribe itself believes that these creatures are so real that they have actually become to fear some otters.
So, whether you believe in it or not, the tribe in Alaska definitely believes in it, to the point that they fear some otters, that the otters may actually be humans in otter form, or these creatures, these ottermen in otter form. And actually, there's a surprising amount of evidence that has been found in these different shows on like the History Channel and whatnot, that goes to the idea that these creatures may be very real after all. And who am I to say they're not, right? I am the last person to say whether or not these creatures could be real, because as far as I'm concerned, all of these cryptids are very, very real, right? And I know normally we've done a cryptid and then a UFO file at this point, and then we'll usually do a ghost file in the second half. And this episode's going to be a little bit different because Alaska has a feature that you don't find in most any other states, except Florida, of course, and that is the Alaskan Triangle, which is much like the Bermuda Triangle in the aspect that people just tend to disappear. People, boats, ships, all kinds of things happen within this triangle. There's lots of UFO cases, and we'll go across some of those here in the second half, as well as a plethora of strange paranormal activity that occurs in the Alaskan Triangle. But what do you guys think so far? Do you think that it is possible that there are woolly mammoths still walking the earth in Alaska? How crazy would that be, right? Woolly mammoths. I might have to go on a woolly mammoth hunt sometime. Or the creature that lives in the water that is a orca crossed with a wolf. That just sounds disturbing. But do you guys think that these things could be real? Or do you think that perhaps maybe they're just all made up? Because, you know, the argument's usually made, there's no space left in the world for anything to hide. There's no room left. Well, actually, the Alaskan wilderness has got a large amount of untouched land by humans. Areas that humans still have yet to go, or if they have, they're in small, very, very small tribes. So it's not like they're overrun with human activity, and there could be things hiding there that we could only begin to dream about or imagine. From the Bigfoot to the sea creatures to there's actually one story of birds like the thunderbirds that the Native Americans in the Southwest would report have been reported also in Alaska. And Alaska, of course, is a very interesting region because it's so close to the North Pole. It is a very, very cold region, and you're going to find creatures there that would survive in temperatures that other creatures normally wouldn't be found in. Of course, you're going to have your polar bears and things like that, but what if there are creatures in Alaska that we haven't even begun to dream of? Remember, the gorilla until 1902 was considered a cryptid creature, as well as the Komodo dragon. I don't remember the year that was finally accepted, but that also was considered a cryptid creature at one time. So the idea that there are these many, many creatures out there that science says cannot exist, yet people swear they've seen, really does bring to question what is true and what science says is true, because most of the time eyewitness reports, in my opinion, have turned out to be more reliable than science's explanations. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and stop right here, and we got to take a network break, so we'll be back with the second half and talk about the Alaskan Triangle right after these messages. You stick right there, we'll be right back. Don't you touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, and that howl means your weekend has begun. Hi everyone, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's topic of the Dark Wolf's Den radio show, State of Mystery, Alaska? I know I am. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. Jerry's here every Wednesday and Thursday night, so he'll return again tomorrow night with the Dark Wolf Den radio show with the exploration through the cave of the multiverse theory, a show that was supposed to broadcast last Thursday that has been scheduled for tomorrow night, June 17th. Starts at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Be here or be square. I'll return again Friday. What is that? June 18th. Can you believe it? It's already almost all the way through June. Unbelievable. I'll return Friday night with the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show and take you deep down the rabbit hole of ratings and reviews. What is in the stars? What does it mean for your local businesses? Or perhaps if you're in business, what does rating and review mean for you? It's going to be an interesting rabbit hole as we kick it off Friday night. And then Saturday, we're going to look at extreme wealth. There's rich and there's wealthy. And Saturday night, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, we're going to look at extreme wealth. Some have it, some don't. Why? Then Sunday night, our visual broadcast series for the summer continues. Sunday night with a night at the museum. It's going to be fun. Join me as we explore some fantastic virtual museums. In a night at the museum, it's going to end out the weekend right together with you Sunday night. All shows start at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you haven't done so already, please hop on over to the riponrabbithole.com. That's riponrabbithole.com. There you can sign up for your exclusive Backstage Pass. It's going to give you 24/7 access down the rabbit hole where the conversation continues after the show. It's a lot of fun. We are making some changes to our weekly schedule, yet once again, we have abandoned MailChimp as one more time they threw a threshold on us. I'm going to have more details up before the end of the weekend. But we'll return to tonight's topic, the Dark Wolf's Den radio show, State of Mystery, Alaska, for June 16th, Wednesday, 2021. You're listening to the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the riponrabbithole.com.
This is My Life DIY, and
hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Oz.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light.
And you're now listening
to Dark Wolf's Den.
The Dark Wolf's Den show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. and welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Wednesday, June 16th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing the state of mystery of Alaska. That's right. But before we dig back into the paranormal, if I may take just a second, guys, for those that don't know, Ripon Common Sense Radio, Ripon Rabbit Hole, and the Dark Wolf's Den Show are completely 100% community-sponsored radio. We are sponsored and driven by you guys, and is with your support that we're able to put on these shows every single week. And we would appreciate any support you could give us if you would like to support us and help us out here on the station. If you like what we're doing here and what we've been doing for a little over a year now, if you have enjoyed the content and would like to help support us here, it is very easy to do. Over on the Dark Wolf's Den Show YouTube channel, in the details section, you're going to find an area for the Patreon, as well as the various cryptocurrencies that we now accept. So if you would like to tip us in cryptocurrency or support us in cryptocurrency or through Patreon Fiat Cash, it is absolutely up to you, and everything you guys are able to do is 100% appreciated. Also, if you would like to support the radio station in the Ripon Rabbit Hole, make sure you go over to the Ripon Rabbit Hole YouTube and drop down in the description section there, and all the information to help support Ripon Common Sense Radio and RiponRabbitHole.com will be down there in those information links. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we once again appreciate any support you guys are able to give us. We are a grassroots, community driven press radio. And ladies and gentlemen, speaking of being a community-driven press, let's drive right back into the topic, ladies and gentlemen, and that is, of course, the state of mystery of Alaska. And this episode is just a little bit different than most episodes. Normally we go through a cryptid, then we go through a UFO case, and then we go through the ghost cases. That's the general setup of these shows. However, as you noticed in the first half, we went through a majority of just the cryptid cases. And the reason is Alaska has a very special paranormal area that most states in the Union do not have. It's got its own triangle of paranormal activity that covers a lot of different types. And that's what we're going to hear about right now.
Everyone knows about the Bermuda Triangle, the strange region in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean, where a large number of aircraft and ships are said to have disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Well, believe it or not, there is another triangular-shaped region where people go missing in the frigid U.S. state of Alaska. Are those that go missing there simply succumbing to nature's wrath, or is there something more sinister at play? There are some pretty wild theories out there. Grab your parkas and strap on your hiking boots. We're headed to Alaska. Let's get started.
All right, everybody, try not to get lost as we enter the Alaskan Triangle.
Welcome to Alaska, the frontier state. We bet you didn't realize that the state of Alaska is the largest of all 50 of the United States. At more than 663,000 square miles, it's actually larger than Texas, California, and Montana combined.
And as we heard in the first half, larger than Germany, Poland, and France combined.
Not only that, but most of it, around 95%, is uninhabited wilderness full of endless acres of lush green woods, literally millions of lakes, frozen glacier ice, mountains taller than anywhere else on the continent, thousands of miles of coastal rainforest, and vast permafrost-covered marshlands. Within all of this untouched wilderness is a mysterious triangular-shaped region where somehow people seem to go missing at a very, very high rate. The Alaska Triangle, sometimes even referred to as Alaska's Bermuda Triangle, connects the state's largest city of Anchorage in the south, to Juneau in the southeast panhandle, to Barrow, a small town on the state's north coast.
And unlike the Bermuda Triangle, which is more of a perfect triangle, this is more of an acute triangle, but it is still an incredibly large area of the state.
This region became one of particular interest after one of the most famous Alaska Triangle disappearances occurred back in 1972.
And like its cousin, the Bermuda Triangle, the Alaskan Triangle also has a way of disappearing more than just humans.
It was then that a small airplane carrying two important U.S. politicians, House Majority Leader Hale Boggs and Alaska's own Congressman Nick Begich, mysteriously vanished while flying from Anchorage to the state capital of Juneau. The search for the missing plane lasted 39 days and employed the help of hundreds of aircraft and ships and even help from the Coast Guard. No signs of the missing plane or its passengers were ever found. One conspiracy theory suggests that the crash was intentional and that it was covered up by J. Edgar Hoover, then head of the FBI, who apparently had a personal grudge he held against Boggs.
Now, a political conspiracy is definitely not out of the question, especially when you got two politicians and the head of the FBI, Mr. J. Edgar Hoover, who could easily cover something up. So, especially his own dirty deeds. Of course, that is all speculation, just based on the case file. And that would be okay if that was the only, plane that had disappeared in the Alaskan Triangle. That could easily be written off. However...
Since then, however, more planes have gone down. Hikers have gone missing. Alaskan residents and tourists all seem to continue to vanish without a trace. According to one source, more than 16,000 people have disappeared in the Alaska Triangle since 1988 alone. That's more than twice the national average.
And we all know about the missing 411 cases. I'd be willing to bet that Alaska has the largest number. I'm just guessing.
These numbers never seem to get any lower. In any given year, anywhere between 500 and 2,000 people go missing in the Alaska Triangle, never to be seen again. Hundreds of rescue missions always come up short. Have the thousands of people who have disappeared in the Alaska Triangle simply succumbed to the elements? It seems like the likeliest answer, but there are actually several rather unconventional theories out there that say otherwise.
Actually, I think they succumb to perhaps dimensional slips or some kind of portal or something that would take them out of this world. A lot like the slips we've seen many times, like the skier from New York that ended up in California, still in his ski clothes a week later with no recollection of how he actually got there. So it's intriguing when you find more and more of these stories, but the Alaskan Triangle is one of those places that has a multitude of strange activities, more than just missing people. But what could be causing these strange paranormal activities just within this triangle of Alaska? Why just this area?
One rather unusual theory is the one that suggests that the Alaskan wilderness is actually populated with all kinds of scary creatures unknown to science, the so-called Alaska monsters. For instance, legend has it that Alaska is home to a vicious canine known as a wahila, or the saber wolf, supposedly significantly larger than your average wolf and covered in white fur. Native legends describe the saber wolf as an evil spirit with supernatural powers.
A saber wolf. Think of a saber-toothed tiger, those huge fangs, but on a wolf. That'd be kind of friggin' scary. I don't know about you guys. I love me some wolves, but I see a saber wolf, I might head the other way.
Many people are wholly convinced that those who go missing in the Alaska Triangle have had an unfortunate run-in with perhaps the most famous cryptic creature in North America, Bigfoot. Believers claim there is significant evidence of the existence of the legendary large bipedal ape-like creature in Alaska, including alleged nesting sites, hair samples, and even possible skeletons.
Well, the next time somebody asks for evidence of a Bigfoot and says there is none, point them to Alaska.
Many believe that the creature inhabits the coastal rainforest in the state's southeastern region, near the bottom of the mysterious triangle. Dense, remote, and teeming with wildlife, Alaska's coastal rainforest provides millions of acres of the perfect habitat for an elusive Sasquatch, so they say.
But of course, no State of Mystery episode would be complete without at least one UFO file, and I promised you guys a UFO case file. Here is one that came across my desk about 20 years ago or so. It's actually one that's older than I thought. I thought it had just happened when I had run across it, but apparently that was not the case. This is a very popular case file, once again, in ufology, about a Japanese airliner in Alaska.
In 1986, a Japanese plane was flying from Iceland to Anchorage, straight through the heart of the triangle, when, according to the veteran pilot Kenjui Terauchi, not one, not two, but 3 unidentified flying objects followed the airliner for approximately 400 miles. One of the objects was said to be twice the size of an aircraft carrier, while the other 2 were smaller in size.
So this was an object so big that the plane was no more than a flake of grass in comparison to the full size of the UFO.
The pilot himself described them as, quote, 2 small ships and the mothership, end quote, that disappeared and reappeared quickly, moving fast and stopping suddenly. Moves that are impossible for any known aircraft.
Especially a known aircraft in 1986. And still to this day, unless it's a, little drone unmanned craft, that's still yet to be any technology that any government has come out and admitted to having.
Even air traffic controllers on the ground made official reports of the 3 large objects appearing on their radar systems.
And you got to love a case file that is backed up by the radar equipment itself.
To avoid the UFOs, the pilot received permission from the ground crew to fly at a lower altitude while trying to outmaneuver the objects. Eventually, the UFOs disappeared after about 30 minutes. Astonishingly, the FBI itself has files on UFO sightings in Alaska from as far back as the 1940s. So did this airliner come dangerously close to becoming an Alaska Triangle statistic by way of something otherworldly?
And I find the 1940s to be a really intriguing decade, because that's when we had the Roswell incident. That's when we had the Kenneth Arnold incident, the very, very first pilot to ever report a UFO. We had the nuclear explosions in the 1940s, the nuclear bombs that went off. There were a large number of interesting things that happened in the 1940s, and the fact that we've got that correlating with a large number of UFOs seen in the area in the 1940s up through the 1980s, but the fact that it said it goes back to the 1940s, now that is incredibly intriguing to me, that flap was so much bigger than even I had realized.
As if theories of UFOs weren't strange enough, some believe the Alaska Triangle is located inside something known as a vile energy vortex,
also known as the vile vortices.
These vile vortices are said to be swirling centers of concentrated energy full of electromagnetic anomalies. Similar vortices are believed to also be present in not only the Bermuda Triangle, but also Easter Island, Stonehenge, the Great Pyramids of Egypt, and elsewhere.
Pretty much any esoteric site on the planet is said to be the central location of one of these vile vortices, as well as a very significant location on a crystalline grid map that surrounds the planet. But that's a whole nother episode well in and of itself.
These energy vortices are believed to have adverse effects on the human body, affecting mental states as well as physical health, causing hallucinations and visions, even confusion and disorientation. Some even believe that these electromagnetic anomalies are also responsible for the often reported malfunction of electrical instruments like compasses. Stranger still are those who believe that a vile vortex opens a doorway into another dimension, trapping those who enter.
Which, based on the evidence, kind of does suggest that to be the very case, with people literally disappearing without a trace off the face of the earth.
Though these theories are usually dismissed by credible science, the supposed physical effects could explain why so mmany enter the Alaska Triangle and never return.
One of only many theories, of course, that could explain the over-incredulous amount of paranormal activity that has been reported in such a condensed area. And that is, of course, the Alaskan Triangle. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Alaska is perhaps one of the most paranormal states in the entire Union due to the fact that it is so much open wilderness untouched by man? Or do you think possibly it's just a bunch of people who've got a little bit too much brain freeze? In the end, ladies and gentlemen, all you can do is look at the evidence, apply a little common sense, and you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Wednesday, June 16th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, today may be closing, but don't you worry, the weekend fun has only just begun. That's right. We will be back tomorrow, June 17th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, with an all-new episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show. That's right. Last week we had a bit of a technical difficulty and we weren't able to do the multiverse theory episode. We will be doing that tomorrow, June 17th, 2021. 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, right here on the Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio Network. All shows here on the network start at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, like the one coming up on Friday, June 18th, 2021. 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ the Ripon Rabbit comes back to the airwaves with an all-new episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show. That's right. On Friday, he'll be talking about ratings and reviews. What is the purpose of the ratings and review system anyway? How did it come about? Is it actually useful, or was it the early version of censorship? AJ will cover all that and more on Friday, June 18th, 2021, as he discusses ratings and reviews. 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then on Saturday, June 19th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ the Ripon Rabbit comes back for another episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show. This time he's going to be talking about extreme wealth. Is it a good thing, or could it be very, very crippling to one? And we all talk about wanting to be millionaires, especially hitting the crypto millionaires, right? But how good could that really be? AJ will discuss all that and more on Saturday, June 19th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, right here on Ripon Common Sense Radio on the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show, and the discussion on extreme wealth. Then on Sunday, June 20th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ the Ripon Rabbit rounds out the weekend right with another all-new episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show. This time he's going to be talking about the night at the museum. That's right. I love museums. Museums always have such amazing historic artifacts. And a virtual museum trip is always going to be a fun thing, right? Make sure you tune in Sunday, June 20th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as AJ takes a virtual tour through a night at the museum. That's right. And that's going to round out the weekend here on Ripon Common Sense Radio and RiponRabbitHole.com. Speaking of the RiponRabbitHole.com, make sure you hop on over and check out the RiponRabbitHole.com, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a lot of fun features over there to enjoy while you are hanging out, like the Down the Rabbit Hole section. But in order to enjoy any of this, you're going to have to sign up for the Backstage Pass. This is absolutely free and will actually garner you one email a week with all of the amazing shows that we have coming up all weekend long. That's right, that goes out every Wednesday night. Then once you are signed up for that Backstage Pass, you can drop down the rabbit hole. That is our exclusive social media center over there, as well as the 24/7 Backstage Lounge. That's where you're going to find me here in just a couple minutes, hanging out with the rest of the rabbits. And we'd love to have you back there joining our international audience of rabbits, hanging out and conversing about many different topics. That's right. Also, while you're on the website, if you go down to the very, very, very bottom of the page, you're going to find this big red button. That's right. Hit that button and you can record 30 seconds of audio, send it to us in the studio, and we'll get it on the radio just for you. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Also, if you would like to help support us here at Ripon Common Sense Radio and the Dark Wolf's Den Show, you are more than welcome to help support us. We are a community-supported, community-driven radio. We don't have corporate sponsors, so it's up to you to help keep us going. That's right. If you would like to sponsor and help us out for what we're doing here, and if you enjoyed these shows that we put on every week, then definitely drop down to the details section under the YouTube video and access the cryptocurrency addresses, and definitely go ahead and send us some cryptocurrency. Or if you would like to send us through Patreon or PayPal, all those options are available. We would appreciate any support you guys are willing to help us out with. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of AJ the Ripon Rabbit, Walt House, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, everybody at Ripon Common Sense Radio, Tom Bayless and this amazing background music. Get it, Tom? If you are looking for a custom soundtrack for your next project, make sure you check out Tom Bayless and Red Shed Studios. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all these folks, my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And remember, until next time we meet, ladies and gentlemen, stay awake, but dare to dream. How? Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever home. Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner. Is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a